Gina Walkington of Bristol is one of 3 Democratic candidates in the special election in the 64th Assembly District. The primary is April 2. Gina, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you so much for having me back.
You say on your website that above all else, healthcare is most important. What changes would you like to see made in this session on healthcare, please?
Sure. So yeah, healthcare has been the issue that I have worked on the most in my time as an advocate and as an organizer. I really want to see the full Medicaid expansion. I think that would be incredibly impactful in a positive way to the people of Wisconsin. Restoring funding for Planned Parenthood is something that Governor Evers proposed in his budget that I am fully supportive of as well.
And you say on your website that it's an especially important issue to you because you had a test that detected some pre-cancerous condition.
Yes, I did. So when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I was a patient of Planned Parenthood. And when I was 20, I went in for my yearly exam and they found early signs of cervical cancer in one of my screenings. I was able to get it treated really quickly, and I am healthy. I now am a mom of 3 boys, and I really credit that screening for my ability to be a mom and for where I am today. Had I not had that access to that affordable, essential screening, who knows when, down the road they would have caught that and what the progression would have been and where I would be today. So,
final question on healthcare. Do you think we as a nation should evolve towards universal healthcare or Medicare for all?
Healthcare is not a privilege. To me, this should not be a privilege afforded to just those who can afford it. Mm-hmm. We need to bring down healthcare costs. We need to make services and health insurance, healthcare coverage more accessible to everyone. So what that looks like as it evolves, I'm not quite sure, but we need to keep going down that road.
You've had a chance to go through Governor Evers' budget. Generally, are you in agreement with its provisions?
I am, yeah. I think it's a great budget. Budget is a statement of our values, and I think that this really reflects the values of Wisconsin.
Well, what about the tax shift? Because he raises taxes on capital gains, mm-hmm. and he raises taxes on manufacturers, or he puts a limit on the manufacturing and the ag credit. In exchange, there's a middle class income tax cut, mm-hmm. Earned income tax credit gets boosted, and a new tax break for first-time homeowners. All that fine with you? You could vote for that as a member of the Assembly?
I think so. I would love to have some more discussion before I made that solid declaration. But for a long time now, the middle class in Wisconsin, the hardworking people of Wisconsin, have had to pay more in their taxes, a more higher percentage than corporations, the wealthier among us, and the cap on the manufacturing tax credit. There's 21 million, I think, in those tax credits that go to 11 individuals in our state, and I think that it is absolutely the right thing to do to put a cap on that. The
governor's budget, you're campaigning now, so you must be hearing about his transportation budget.
Mm-hmm.
8-cent increase in the gas tax.
Yeah.
The governor's office said that would be offset by repeal of the minimum markup. Is that a popular thing? Are the voters you're talking to supporting that?
No one has really specifically brought that proposal up. The overwhelming message that I get is that we have to find the money to fix our roads. People are really struggling with the condition of our roads locally and across the state. It is costing them a lot in time. It is costing them a lot in maintenance for their vehicles. And I think at this point, finding that money to put into our infrastructure is the most important thing in their minds.
Could you vote for that funding method in the governor's budget, which also includes an increase in what heavy-duty trucks would pay?
Yeah. I think it's a really good start.
Okay. The governor's budget includes an additional $1.5 billion for K-12 schools. Mm-hmm. Can you justify, could you vote for that big of an increase?
Absolutely. Funding for our education system is so important. We have to make sure that we're setting our kids up for success, that we're preparing them for the changing workforce. And, our schools need that, our teachers need that, and I would absolutely support that increase.
Including the $600 million upper for special education?
Yes, absolutely.
Choice. The governor's budget would freeze the choice program. I don't know how many schools participate in choice in the 64th, but I know there's some. Your position on choice?
You know, I think that parents should all have the choice of where to send their kids to school. My issue comes in when public dollars are going to private schools and there's not the same checks and balances that there is in public schools. I think that that's an issue, and it's also taking money away from our public school system. So I'm in favor of that cap.
Okay, you eventually would you like to dial back the choice program? That's a position of some Democrats. Is it yours?
Yeah, it is, and the specifics on how to do that or how much, you know, I'm not quite sure on. Again, I would like to have more conversations with more stakeholders in it, but as a whole, broadly, yeah, I am supportive of that.
The governor's budget on medical marijuana, it takes a step towards medical marijuana, and it decriminalizes a small amount of marijuana, and that's unpopular with the Republicans. Your position on both those issues?
So I am fully supportive of medical marijuana. I think it is long overdue. We have an opioid epidemic in this state and in our community, and you know, there is data and studies to show that states that have legalized medical use of marijuana have seen a decrease in their opioid abuse and use. I think that is really important. It also opens up revenue streams. Prescription drug costs are immense, and if we have a less expensive and safer alternative to some prescriptions, I think that we have to be opening those up.
That's on medical marijuana.
Yeah.
What about his decriminalization for up to 30 grams?
Yeah, I'm supportive of that as well. We have a lot of people in our prison systems that are in prison for those really low-level offenses, and I think that decriminalizing it is a good thing.
You mentioned our prison system. Wisconsin, unfortunately, leads the nation in the incarceration of African Americans. How could that trend be changed?
Well, I think decriminalizing the lower level possession charges is really really important and a good first step. You know, I think putting more of our money and our focus on things like education, things like healthcare, before school programs, after school programs, how are we supporting our communities so that they can support our young people is also some steps to take for that.
Does the governor's budget go far enough in terms of restoring some of the issues that are favored by unions? The governor's budget would repeal the right to work. You would support that?
Yep.
And restore prevailing wage. The governor's budget would not, however, restore any of the collective bargaining that Act 10 took away.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with that provision? Not that the governor's budget doesn't address that?
I think that it needs to be addressed. Whether or not the budget is the appropriate place for that, you know, is another conversation. I think that where we're at as a state right now, we have a divided government. We know that there are going to be some things in Governor Evers' budget, that don't make it through. I think, again, this is a really good start. It is a really good statement of our values. Yes, collective bargaining would be great to have. Restoring collective bargaining would be great to have in the budget. I think we can address that in other ways and still get that accomplished.
The special election is April 30th if you win the primary.
Yep.
If you're a member of the Assembly and the Republicans completely junk Governor Evers' budget, what do you think you Assembly Democrats, assuming you win, should do next? Should you encourage the governor to veto any Republican budget? Have you thought about that?
I haven't thought a lot about that. My focus, aside from the campaign, is the main focus of mine right now. But I think that, you know, during this initial part of the budget process, we need to be out in our communities. We need to be mobilizing around what is in the budget and speaking up and speaking out. And we've seen that. I've been a part of that during, you know, some of the healthcare repeal attempts nationally. And we've seen that when people speak up and tell their stories and show up, that big things can happen. And so I think that's where right now we should be focusing, and then crossing that bridge when we come to it, if it gets to that place.
The governor's budget would form a panel on the minimum wage. What's your position? Should we immediately increase it? Should we get to $15 an hour, and if so, over what period?
We need to be paying a living wage for all of our workers. There should never be a time that someone is working full-time, multiple jobs, that they have to choose between putting food on their table and paying for prescription drugs or a doctor's visit. And that is what's happening. We're at record low unemployment or near record low unemployment, but we still, our families are still struggling. Family income has stagnated. We have more kids who are struggling. They're hungry.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be looking at that. So whether in every community across the board that's $15, I don't know, but we need to be raising it, definitely.
Do you like the governor's proposal? Let's have a bump and then let's raise it in increments of 75 cents over the next few years?
I think that could be helpful in not having such a drastic impact on our businesses. So I would want to look into it more, but I would probably be supportive of that.
You're seeking the seat that Representative Barca held before he became the state revenue secretary.
Mm-hmm.
He voted for Foxconn.
Yeah.
Would you have voted for Foxconn?
No, I would not have.
You would not have?
No.
Why?
Well, I've never been in favor of Foxconn. I've never been a fan of it. I think bringing in jobs is really important. But taking a look at how we're bringing those jobs in and what kind of jobs they are they paying a living wage? Are they going to be businesses that are invested in our community? I don't think that Foxconn checks those boxes. And I think that the environmental impact of Foxconn as well is a move that we don't need to make to bring in jobs. We could have taken that money and put it into small businesses, other areas that would really help our communities thrive.
The governor's budget also includes a plan for a nonpartisan redistricting.
Yeah.
You support that?
Yes, absolutely.
Why is that important?
People should be able to choose their representatives and not the other way around. Our communities are so incredibly gerrymandered. Our communities are divided because of it, and we see in this last election, Democrats won statewide, and we still only picked up one assembly seat, and I believe we lost a Senate seat, and that does not add up to me. And I think it really solidified that our maps are a problem.
The Attorney General asked the governor to include what's called a red flag law in Wisconsin. The governor chose not to do that. Do we need a red flag law that if someone is found to be a danger to others, you could temporarily order that their guns be taken?
Yes, I am a fan or in favor of red flag laws. I think that it is really important that family members, close friends, law enforcement can identify a problem and quickly try to alleviate the immediate danger. I am not a proponent of taking people's guns away on a large level, just to be clear about that, but in situations where someone is going through some mental instability, a crisis, I think that it's useful for those to be temporarily removed from their possession.
We've talked about a bunch of issues. Is there any is there any important issue to your campaign I haven't asked you about? I want to give you a chance to.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, so I have been working in the community for healthcare, which we've talked about, education as well, and just I would really like to make sure that our workers are given an environment that is sustainable. Living wage, closing the gender pay gap is really important, and then paid family leave is something that I feel really passionately about as well, that I hope to be able to work on.
You want a stronger paid family leave law?
I do, yeah, yeah.
Final question, you want to highlight differences between your Democratic opponents on April 2nd and the Republican candidate on April 30th?
Yeah, well, and I'll highlight that by just telling a little bit more about myself, I guess. I've been an advocate, an organizer, a volunteer in this community for quite some time. I am a mom, and I have experienced both, being a young mom, working full-time, going to school, being a stay-at-home mom, and then, looking at the idea of going back to work and facing the skyrocketing cost of childcare, realizing that that would take up nearly my entire paycheck. I've opened medical bills that I thought would be covered that weren't. I've had to negotiate and fight insurance companies on behalf of my middle son to get some medical care. I've experienced the struggles that a lot of those in our community have, and I think that taking those experiences with me to the legislature gives me a good perspective on how the things that we're talking about, the things that we're considering in the legislature, how they will impact everyday people in our community. And I think that that's really important and really needed.
Gina Walkington of Bristol is one of 3 Democratic candidates in the special election in the 64th Assembly District. The primary is April 2nd. The special election is April 30th. Gina, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.